The emergency signal cut through the council chambers like a knife through soft flesh. And every representative in the Grand Circular Hall turned their attention to the holographic display that materialized above the central platform merchant. Coalition vessels were under siege at the Kepler trading hub, and the reports flooding in painted a grim picture of hundreds of ships forming a blockade around one of the galaxy's most vital commerce centers. Ambassador Felix of the Vraxi Collective rose from his seat, his forearms gesturing frantically as he brought up the tactical display for all to see. The Zarian pirates have committed their entire armada to this attack, he announced, his translator converting his whistling speech into standard galactic common. Our preliminary scans indicate at least 400 vessels, possibly more hiding in the outer system. The council chamber erupted into anxious chatter as representatives consulted with their military advisors through private channels. The Kepler trading hub wasn't just another station. It was where 17 different species conducted the bulk of their interstellar commerce, and thousands of civilian vessels were now trapped behind the pirate blockade. Council Chairman Vorthak, a towering saurian whose species had led the council for 3 generations, called for order by slamming his ceremonial staff against the floor. The sound echoed through the chamber, and silence gradually returned. We must respond with overwhelming force, declared General Carthox of the Vreem Military Command. I recommend we mobilize 3 full battle fleets from the nearest systems. 3 fleets? Questioned Ambassador Sylvana of the Aquilian Federation. That would leave the Outer Rim completely undefended, and take weeks to coordinate, added another voice from across the chamber. The debate raged for hours as military strategists calculated probable casualties, discussed fleet movements, and argued about which species should contribute how many vessels to the relief effort. Every calculation came back with the same troubling conclusion. Even with 3 full battle fleets, they would suffer catastrophic losses trying to break through the Zarian armada. The pirates had chosen their position well, using the trading hub's massive structure as both shield and hostage. Any direct assault would risk massive civilian casualties, and the Zarian had made it clear they would start executing prisoners if the council attempted to rescue it. Was Ambassador Chun of the Terran delegation who finally spoke up, her voice calm and steady despite the chaos around her. The United Nations Space Command will handle this situation, she said simply. The chamber fell silent, and hundreds of alien eyes turned toward the human representative. Humanity had joined the Galactic Council only 20 standard years ago, a remarkably short time after achieving faster-than-light travel. Most species took centuries to develop FTL technology, but humans had done it in mere decades once they'd set their minds to the task. They were still considered a minor power by most council members, their military untested in large-scale conflicts. With respect, Ambassador Chun, Chairman Vorthak said carefully, this situation requires a coordinated response from multiple council militaries. The Zarian armada numbers in the hundreds. Chun smiled in that peculiar way humans did when they knew something others didn't. We appreciate the council's concern, she replied. However, Earth Command has already dispatched a response force. Estimated time of arrival is 6 hours. General Carthox leaned forward in his seat, his scales rippling with what might have been curiosity or concern. How many vessels are you committing to this operation? He asked. 1. Chun answered. The word hung in the air like a physical thing, and for several long moments, nobody seemed to know how to respond. 1 vessel? Thelxie finally managed, his translator barely keeping up with his rapid speech. Surely there's been a translation error. No error. Chun confirmed. The UNSC Indomitable is more than sufficient for this mission. You're sending a single ship against an armada of 400? Sylvana's voice rose in pitch. Is this some kind of human humor we haven't yet learned to understand? I assure you, We take this situation very seriously, Chun replied, her expression turning grave. Every civilian life at that trading hub matters to us. That's precisely why we're sending the Indomitable. The council erupted into chaos once more, with representatives shouting questions and concerns across the chamber. How could one ship possibly stand against hundreds? Was humanity so desperate for glory that they would throw away their vessel and crew in a suicidal gesture? Did they not understand the mathematics of warfare? Chun waited patiently for the noise to die down before continuing. I've transmitted the Indomitable specifications to the Council's military database, she said, for those interested in the technical details. General Carthox immediately pulled up the data on his personal display, his eyes widening as he scrolled through the information. This vessel is large, he admitted, but mass alone doesn't win battles. The Zarin will simply swarm it from all directions. Perhaps, Chun said with that same knowing smile. We'll know soon enough. 6 hours later, every sensor array in the Kepler system turned toward the point where the human vessel would emerge from faster-than-light travel. The Council had dispatched observer ships to monitor the situation, half expecting the humans to arrive with a hidden fleet despite their claims when the Indomitable dropped out of FTL at the edge of the system. The sensor readings confirmed what seemed impossible. It truly was just one ship, certainly massive by human standards, stretching nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern, bristling with weapon emplacements and armor plating that gleamed dull gray in the starlight, but still just one vessel, the Zarin pirate lord, a battle-scarred warrior named Krexter, who had conquered 17 systems through sheer numerical superiority. Received the sensor data with amusement. He opened a broadcast on all frequencies, his laughter a harsh barking sound that needed no translation. The humans send one ship, he roared, one ship to face the might of the Zarin clans. This will be over before it begins. All vessels, form attack formation Beta 7. We swarm them from all sides and tear them apart. Hundreds of pirate vessels began moving into position, their weapons charging, their crews eager for an easy victory. The human ship hung motionless against the backdrop of stars, seemingly waiting, making no aggressive moves on the bridge of the observation vessel Shadow of Inquiry. Captain Tlack of the Vraxi watched the tactical display with growing dread. This is madness, he muttered to his tactical officer. The humans are either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish. Perhaps both, his officer replied. But look at their positioning. They're not rushing in. They're calculating something. Indeed, the Indomitable had taken up a specific position relative to both the pirate armada and the trading hub. Maintaining precise distance from both it made no sense according to conventional galactic military doctrine, which emphasized closing to optimal weapons range as quickly as possible. Then the human ship's communication array lit up, and Captain Sarah Chun's face appeared on every screen in the system. Her dark eyes were calm, her voice steady and professional. This is Captain Sarah Chun of the United Nations Space Command. Vessel Indomitable to all Zarin vessels currently engaged in the illegal blockade of Kepler Trading Hub, she began. You are in violation of Galactic Council laws, sections 47 through 63, regarding piracy, hostage-taking, and threats against civilian populations. I am authorized to offer you one chance to surrender peacefully. Release all hostages immediately. Power down your weapons, and prepare to be taken into custody. You have 10 minutes to comply. The laughter from Krexter's flagship was even louder this time. 10 minutes, he bellowed. I'll give you 10 seconds before my ships turn yours into floating debris. This is your final warning, Chun continued, her expression unchanged. If you do not comply, we will use all necessary force to end this siege and rescue the hostages. The countdown timer appeared on every display, 10 minutes ticking down with mechanical precision. Captain Tlack found himself holding his breath despite his species' multiple respiratory systems. Either the humans had lost their minds, or they knew something the rest of the galaxy didn't know. Was about to find out which. The timer on every display in the Kepler system continued its inexorable countdown, and the Zarian pirates spent those precious minutes positioning their vessels for what they assumed would be a quick and brutal execution. Rexeter had fought in dozens of battles, conquered systems through overwhelming numbers, and never once doubted that superior fleet size guaranteed victory. His tactical doctrine was simple: swarm the enemy from all directions, absorb whatever damage they could inflict, and tear them apart through sheer weight of fire. 9 minutes passed. Then 9.5. The Indomitable remained motionless, its weapon systems still cold, showing no signs of charging its shields or preparing for combat. Captain Tlack watched from his observation post, his sensory organs straining to detect any hint of additional human vessels hiding in the system. Still no sign of reinforcements. His tactical officer reported, "The human ship appears to be completely alone. They must have some kind of plan." Tlack insisted. No species could be this foolish. When the timer reached 30 seconds, something changed. The Indomitable's communication array blazed to life again, and Captain Chen's face reappeared on every screen. Her expression remained calm, almost serene, but there was steel in her voice. "To all civilian vessels in the Kepler trading hub," she announced, "seal your ships immediately and move to your innermost compartments." "This will be brief," the pirate lord laughed again. But this time, there was an edge to it, something that might have been uncertainty. "Your time is up, human," he snarled. "All vessels attack pattern Omega. Tear them apart." The countdown reached 0 for a single heartbeat. Nothing happened. Then the Indomitable spoke, and the galaxy learned what humanity meant by necessary force. The first indication something was wrong came when the human vessel's power signature suddenly spiked to levels that should have been impossible for a ship of its size. Its weapon systems came online, not gradually, as any sensible species would do, but all at once, a cascade of activation signals that lit up every sensor in the system. "Beginning engagement," Chen's voice announced with clinical precision. "All weapons free. Rules of engagement: disable where possible, destroy where necessary. Civilian safety is paramount." What happened next would later be known throughout the galaxy as the Kepler Minute, though the actual engagement lasted considerably longer. The name came from those first 60 seconds when the human vessel demonstrated that everything the Galactic Council thought they knew about warfare was incomplete. The Indomitables railgun batteries opened fire first. These weren't the plasma cannons or energy weapons that dominated galactic warfare. These were kinetic weapons that launched dense metal slugs at a significant fraction of light speed. The first pirate vessel to enter effective range simply ceased to exist, struck by a projectile moving so fast that the impact released energy equivalent to a tactical nuclear weapon. 3 more ships vanished in rapid succession, their shields and armor completely inadequate against weapons that operated on principles most species had abandoned millennia ago. "Impossible," Krexther roared. "No ship can generate that much kinetic force." But the railguns were just the beginning. Missile pods along the Indomitable's hull opened like flowers blooming in fast forward, and thousands of autonomous hunter-killer missiles streamed out into space. Each missile had its own guidance system, its own target priority algorithms, its own ability to adapt and pursue. The pirate ships tried to shoot them down, but for every missile they destroyed, 3 more found their targets. Explosions blossomed across the pirate formation like deadly fireworks. "Return fire," Krexther commanded. "All ships, target that vessel with everything you have." The pirate armada unleashed a devastating volley plasma bolts, kinetic missiles, energy beams, everything in their considerable arsenal, enough firepower to reduce a dozen conventional warships to atoms. The barrage streaked toward the Indomitable, and for a moment it seemed like sheer numbers must prevail then. The human ship's point defense systems activated hundreds of laser turrets, each no larger than a human torso, swiveled with mechanical precision, and began tracking incoming threats. The lasers themselves were invisible in the vacuum of space, but their effects were immediate, and devastating missiles detonated prematurely as laser beams sliced through their guidance systems. Plasma bolts dispersed harmlessly as precisely targeted energy bursts disrupted their magnetic containment. Even solid kinetic rounds were intercepted, heated to vaporization by sustained laser fire. Captain Tlack's tactical officer was frantically analyzing the engagement, his multiple limbs working several consoles simultaneously. "Captain, the human point defense system is eliminating 97% of incoming fire," he reported, his voice climbing in pitch. "The remaining 3% is being absorbed by their shields and armor." "How is this possible?" Tlack demanded. "Their targeting computers must be processing thousands of threats per second. No organic crew could coordinate that many defensive systems." "They're using artificial intelligence," the tactical officer replied, "machine minds augmenting their crew's capabilities." This revelation sent ripples of shock through the observership. Most species used basic computer systems for navigation and calculations, but true artificial intelligence was rare and often feared across the galaxy, too. Many civilizations had cautionary tales about machines that turned on their creators. The humans, it seemed, had no such concerns, or rather, they'd solved the problem in ways others hadn't. Indomitable continued its methodical destruction of the pirate armada. Ships that tried to flee were disabled with precise strikes to their engines. Vessels that pressed the attack were destroyed outright, and through it all, the human ship's point defense never wavered, never faltered, never allowed a single shot to reach its hull. Rexter was screaming orders now, his tactical doctrine falling apart as his numerical superiority proved meaningless. "Flank them. Use the civilian ships as cover. Do something." Some of his captains, more clever or more desperate than the rest, attempted exactly that. A cluster of 15 pirate vessels broke formation and raced toward the trading hub, clearly intending to use the civilian ships as shields against the Indomitable's weapons. Captain Chun's response was immediate. "Launch boarding teams," she ordered. "Target those vessels. Specifically, Priority 1, hostage rescue." The Indomitable's hull opened in new places, and cylindrical objects shot out with tremendous velocity. These weren't missiles or torpedoes. They were boarding pods, each one carrying a full squad of human marines in powered armor. Pods streaked across space faster than any conventional shuttle, equipped with their own guidance systems and maneuvering thrusters. When they reached their targets, shaped charges on their nose cones detonated with precise force, punching through pirate hull plating and creating breaches just large enough for the pods to enter. Captain Tlack switched his observation feeds to focus on one of the boarding actions. His screen showed the interior of a Zarine pirate vessel. The camera feed coming from what must have been one of the human marines' helmet sensors. The breach alarms were wailing, and Zarine pirates were rushing toward the entry point with weapons raised. Then the humans emerged from the boarding pod. They weren't like any soldiers Tlack had seen before. Each marine stood over 2 meters tall in their powered armor, which moved with them like a second skin. Their weapons were compact but clearly deadly, and they moved through the pirate ship with mechanical precision. "Contact!" one marine shouted, and the squad immediately shifted into a formation that covered all angles. The Zarin opened fire with their plasma rifles, and Tlak expected to see the humans cut down. Instead, the shots splashed harmlessly off their armor, and the Marines returned fire with weapons that made sharp cracking sounds even in the thin atmosphere. The pirates fell, not dead but incapacitated. The humans were using some kind of non-lethal ammunition. Secure the hostages. The squad leader commanded, Team 1 with me. Team 2, Engineering. Team 3, Bridge. Nobody kills unless absolutely necessary. The Marines split up with practiced efficiency, each team knowing exactly where to go despite never having been on this particular ship before. They clearly studied Zarin vessel layouts and were using that knowledge to devastating effect when pirates tried to vent the atmosphere to kill the intruders. The human sealed armor kept them alive while the defenders suffocated when the Zarin attempted to use civilian hostages as shields. The Marines switched to even more precise weaponry, dart guns that could drop a target without risking pass-through shots, and when one desperate pirate tried to overload the ship's reactor, a human combat engineer disabled the core in less than 30 seconds. Working with tools and knowledge that shouldn't have been possible for someone who'd never seen this type of reactor before. How are they adapting so quickly? Tlak whispered his tactical officer had been reviewing intelligence files. Sir, according to these reports, human military training includes extensive study of every known species technology, tactics, and ship designs, he said. They prepare for scenarios they've never encountered. Back in space, the Indomitable continued its systematic dismantling of the pirate armada, but Captain Chun never stopped broadcasting on open channels, offering surrender terms to any vessel that would accept them. 3 hours into the engagement, Krexther's mighty armada was reduced to scattered fragments of its former strength. Over half his vessels were either destroyed or captured, and the remainder were desperately trying to reorganize into some semblance of a defensive formation. The pirate lord stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Fang, watching his tactical display with growing horror. Everything he knew about warfare, every instinct honed through decades of successful raids, told him that this situation was impossible. How many ships have we lost? He demanded. His tactical officer's hands shook as he consulted the damage reports. 217 confirmed destroyed. He reported another 93 captured by boarding teams. 74 have surrendered. That leaves us with, I can count. Krexther snarled. 16 vessels still combat capable against one human ship that hasn't even taken meaningful damage. He slammed his fist against the command console, the impact leaving a dent in the metal. Every tactical doctrine he'd ever learned said that numbers were supposed to matter. Overwhelming force was supposed to win, but the humans weren't playing by those rules. The Indomitable had positioned itself at a mathematically precise distance from both the pirate formation and the trading hub. From that position, it could bring its railguns to bear on any approaching vessel, while its point defense systems had maximum time to track and eliminate incoming fire every time Krexther tried to close the distance. The human ship simply adjusted its position, maintaining that optimal engagement range with maddening precision. They're treating this like a mathematical problem, Krexther muttered. Not a battle of calculation. His second-in-command, a scarred veteran named Dex, stepped forward. We could try a coordinated suicide run, she suggested. All remaining vessels at once. Maximum acceleration. We'd take casualties, but some of us might get close enough to what? Krexther interrupted. Ram them? Even if we got through their point defense, their armor would probably survive the impact. He pulled up the data they'd managed to gather on the Indomitable's construction. The human vessel wasn't built like most warships. which prioritized speed and maneuverability instead. It was essentially a mobile fortress layers of composite armor, redundant systems. Compartmentalized sections designed to contain damage, was built to absorb punishment that would cripple any normal vessel and keep fighting on the observation ship. Captain Tlack was conducting his own analysis, and the conclusions were reshaping his entire understanding of military strategy. Look at their crew rotation, his tactical officer pointed out. They're switching personnel every 4 hours. The bridge crew, the weapons operators, even the Marines. They have backup teams for everything. Tlack's sensory organs widened in realization. Most species, including his own Vraxi people, push their crews to fight continuously during battle. Warriors were expected to maintain combat effectiveness through sheer determination and chemical stimulants, but the humans had brought enough personnel to run the Indomitable in shifts, allowing exhausted crew members to rest while fresh replacements took their positions. They're not just fighting a battle, Tlack said slowly. They came prepared for a prolonged campaign. His tactical officer pulled up inventory data. The human transponders were still broadcasting. Apparently, they saw no reason to hide their capabilities. Captain, their ammunition stores are sufficient for sustained combat operations lasting weeks, he reported. Their medical facilities can handle mass casualties. They even brought specialized holding cells, designed for 17 different species biological requirements. They planned to take prisoners. From the start, the implications were staggering. While the Galactic Council was still debating how many fleets to mobilize, the humans had already analyzed the situation, calculated the required resources, and deployed with everything they needed to win decisively back aboard the Indomitable. Captain Sarah Chun stood in the command center, watching the tactical displays with experienced eyes. Her first officer, Commander James Rodriguez, approached with the latest casualty report. 3 Marines injured during the boarding actions. He reported 2 broken bones from close quarters combat, 1 plasma burn that got through a seal. All 3 are stable and expected to recover fully. Any civilian casualties? Chun asked. None. Rodriguez confirmed. The boarding team secured all hostages without losses. We're transferring them to the trading hub's medical facilities now. Chun nodded, her expression showing relief. Every human life mattered, certainly, but the civilians they'd come to rescue had been her primary concern from the moment this operation began. Status of the remaining pirate vessels? She asked. 16 still combat capable and holding formation around the Crimson Fang. Rodriguez replied. Tactical assessment suggests they're preparing for either a final assault or a retreat attempt. Open a channel to their flagship, Chun ordered. Let's see if we can end this without more bloodshed. Moments later, Krexther's face appeared on the main display. The pirate lord looked haggard, his confidence shattered. But there was still defiance in his eyes. What do you want, human? He growled. I want you to surrender. Chun said simply. You've lost this battle. Continued resistance will only result in the deaths of your remaining crew members. You've taken everything from me. Krexther roared. My fleet, my reputation, my... You took those things from yourself when you chose piracy. Chun interrupted. When you terrorized civilian populations and violated Galactic Council law. We're just here to stop you from hurting anyone else. One ship. Krexther spat. How dare you one ship against the entire Zerine clans? It's an insult. Chun's expression hardened. Then consider it a lesson, she said. Numbers don't win battles. Preparation, training, and superior technology do. You came here expecting to overwhelm us through sheer mass. We came prepared to face exactly what you brought. This is what happens when you underestimate humanity. She gestured. And Rodriguez brought up a tactical display showing the current situation. Krexther could see his remaining 16 vessels surrounded by the debris of his once mighty armada human. Boarding pods and marine teams were still securing captured ships, cataloging prisoners, and rendering aid to wounded pirates. You can choose to die here, fighting for a lost cause, Chun continued, or you can surrender and face justice. Your crews will be treated according to Galactic Council law. You'll have trials, legal representation, and humane detention. That's more mercy than you showed your victims. Krexter looked at the display for a long moment, and something seemed to break inside him. His shoulders slumped, and the fight went out of his eyes. If I surrender, he said quietly, what happens to my people? Your warriors will be tried individually based on their crimes, Chun explained. Some may face longer sentences than others, but we don't execute prisoners, and we don't torture them. You have my word as an officer of the United Nations Space Command. The pirate lord let out a long breath around him. His bridge crew watched with varying expressions of relief and shame. Stand down all weapons, Krexter ordered finally. Transmit surrender codes to the remaining fleet. The battle is over. Captain Tlack watched from his observation post as the last pirate vessels powered down their weapons and began broadcasting. White flag protocols. The engagement had lasted 5 hours and 17 minutes from start to finish when historians later asked what it should be called. Most settled on the Kepler minute because of those first 60 seconds when the human vessel demonstrated its devastating capabilities, but Tlack knew that name missed the point entirely. This hadn't been a battle in the traditional sense. It had been a demonstration, a carefully calculated display of power designed to achieve specific objectives with minimum loss of life. The humans hadn't come to Kepler to prove their strength or to conquer territory. They'd come to rescue hostages and stop pirates. And they brought exactly the tools needed for that job, no more, no less. Compile all sensor data, Tlack ordered his crew. Every scan, every analysis, every observation we've made. The Council needs to see this. His tactical officer looked uncertain. Captain, some of this information is quite alarming, he ventured. Should we perhaps? The Council needs to understand what humanity is capable of. Tlack insisted, not to fear them, but to properly assess them as allies and potential partners. He watched as human Marines began transferring prisoners to secure holding facilities aboard the Indomitable. They moved with professional efficiency, treating their captives firmly, but without cruelty. Medical teams were already working on injured pirates, providing the same level of care they give their own wounded. They fight like demons, Tlack murmured, but they show mercy like saints. His tactical officer nodded slowly. Perhaps that's what makes them truly dangerous, he suggested. Not their weapons or their ships, but their refusal to compromise their values, even in warfare. Tlack considered this as the last pirate vessel was secured. Human doctrine was becoming clear now, overwhelming force deployed with surgical precision, always maintaining the option for mercy, never forgetting that even enemies were living beings deserving of certain basic rights. It was a way of warfare that most species had abandoned long ago. Considering it inefficient or naive, the humans had made it devastatingly effective. Send a message to Council Command, Tlack ordered. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened 3 days after the Kepler incident, and the Grand Chamber was more crowded than Captain Tlack had ever seen it. Representatives from every member species had arrived, along with military advisors, strategic analysts, and various officials who normally wouldn't attend such meetings. The holographic displays showed detailed recordings of the battle, and the air practically vibrated with tension and curiosity. Chairman Vorthek called the session to order, though it took several attempts before the excited chatter died down enough for him to speak. We have all reviewed the reports from Kepler Trading Hub, he began. Captain Plaque of the Shadow of Inquiry has provided extensive censored data, and the rescued civilians have given testimony about the human rescue operation. The Council must now discuss what these events mean for our collective security and our relationship with humanity. General Carthox was the first to speak, his scale shifting through colors that indicated deep thought. I have spent the past 72 hours analyzing every second of that engagement, he said, and I must confess that my initial assessment of human military capabilities was catastrophically incorrect. He brought up a three-dimensional tactical model that showed the Indomitable's position throughout the battle. Observe how the human vessel maintained optimal engagement range at all times, he explained. Every time the pirate forces attempted to close distance or flank, the Indomitable adjusted its position with mathematical precision. This wasn't the captain making tactical decisions in the moment. This was a predetermined strategy, executed flawlessly. Ambassador Silvana leaned forward in her seat. Are you suggesting the humans predicted exactly how the battle would unfold? She asked. I'm suggesting they didn't need to predict it, Carthox replied. They brought sufficient firepower and defensive capability to handle any possible response. The Indomitable isn't just a warship, it's a complete naval doctrine condensed into a single vessel. He began highlighting different sections of the ship on the holographic display. Look at the design philosophy, he continued, where we build fleets of specialized vessels carriers, destroyers, support craft. The humans build one ship that fulfills every role simultaneously. It's a carrier with its boarding pods and marine contingent. It's a battleship with its railgun batteries. It's a point defense platform protecting civilian vessels. It's a command and control hub coordinating rescue operations. Thalxi of the Vraxi Collective whistled through his translator. This violates our fundamental understanding of fleet composition, he protested. Specialization provides flexibility. A single vessel, no matter how capable, should be vulnerable to coordinated attacks. Should be. Carthox agreed. But the humans solved that problem through technology we've never seen deployed. At this scale, he pulled up analysis of the Indomitable's point defense systems. These laser turrets tracked and eliminated over 10,000 individual targets during the engagement, he explained. The processing power required for that level of coordination exceeds anything we've developed. They're using advanced artificial intelligence to augment their crew's capabilities. A murmur of concern rippled through the chamber. Most species had strict limitations on AI development after various disasters. Throughout galactic history, the humans aren't afraid of their machines. Observe Council member Zextar of the Silicon Collective, whose own species had a unique relationship with technology. They've integrated artificial intelligence into their military systems in ways we've been too cautious to attempt, perhaps too cautious, Carthox suggested, because the results speak for themselves. Ambassador Chun, who had been sitting quietly through the discussion, finally spoke up. If I may address some of the Council's concerns, she said, her voice carried through the chamber, and everyone turned to face the human representative. The Indomitable represents a specific philosophy that guides all human military development, she explained. We don't build weapons to conquer or to intimidate. We build them to protect and to respond to threats with appropriate force. Appropriate force? Thalxi challenged. You destroyed or captured 400 vessels. We disabled or captured the majority, Chun corrected. Only those ships that refused to surrender and continued to pose an active threat were destroyed. Our weapons are designed to offer choices: surrender and live, or fight and face consequences. She brought up casualty figures on the main display. 3 human Marines injured, all recovering. 0 civilian casualties. Pirate casualties, 4,327 killed in action, all from vessels that refuse surrender. 11,862 taken prisoner alive and currently awaiting trial. The numbers hung in the air. stark and undeniable. The humans had achieved what the Council thought would require 3 full battle fleets and accept catastrophic losses. And they'd done it with minimal bloodshed. How many ships like the Indomitable does Earth possess? Chairman Vorthik asked directly. Chen smiled. The Indomitable is actually one of our older designs, she said. It's been in service for 10 standard years. We maintain 17 vessels of this class, plus numerous smaller ships for patrol and escort duties. The chamber erupted into shocked exclamations. 17 ships of that capability represented firepower that rivaled some of the Council's largest military forces. And your experimental designs? Karthox asked quietly. Chun's smile widened slightly. We have 3 dreadnoughts currently in testing that make the Indomitable look modest by comparison, she admitted. But we're not building a conquest fleet. These vessels are designed for defense and for rapid response to situations exactly like Kepler. Ambassador Silvana rose to her feet with respect. Ambassador Chun, you must understand how this appears to the Council, she said. A species that achieves FTL travel in record time, develops military technology beyond our comprehension, deploys artificial intelligence without apparent fear of the consequences. These are concerning patterns. What assurance can you give us that humanity won't use this power for conquest? Chan's expression turned serious. I can give you the same assurance we gave Krexter before we disabled his fleet, she said. Humanity fights only when necessary, only to protect the innocent, and only with the minimum force required to achieve our objectives. We could have glassed the pirate vessels from standoff range. Instead, we offered surrender terms. We could have executed the captured pirates as an example. Instead, we're providing them with legal representation and fair trials. She paused, letting her words sink in. Our power is meaningless without our principles, she continued. We didn't come to Kepler to demonstrate our strength. We came because civilian lives were in danger. And we have the capability to help. That's what drives human military doctrine, not conquest. Not glory, but protection. Captain Tlack, who had been invited to speak at this session, stood and addressed the Council. I have studied the engagement recordings extensively, he said, and I believe I understand something that the raw tactical data doesn't fully convey. He brought up footage from the boarding operations, showing human Marines clearing pirate vessels. Watch how they move, he said. Every action is precise. Every decision calculated. When pirates used hostages as shields, the Marines switched to non-lethal weapons. When atmospheric venting threatened to kill everyone, the humans' sealed armor kept them alive while they rescued the very people who'd tried to kill them moments before. The footage continued, showing Marines providing medical aid to wounded pirates. This is what makes humanity truly remarkable, Tlack concluded. Not their weapons or their ships, but their refusal to abandon their values even in the midst of combat. They fight like the most disciplined warriors, but they show mercy like the most enlightened philosophers. It's a combination we've rarely seen in galactic history. General Karthox nodded slowly. Captain Tlack is correct, he said. I've analyzed hundreds of military doctrines across dozens of species. Most follow a simple pattern: increase force until the enemy is destroyed. The humans have developed something different. They scale their response to the threat, always maintaining the option for de-escalation, always prioritizing the preservation of life. He looked directly at Ambassador Chin. You could have sent a fleet to Kepler, he said. You could have overwhelmed the pirates through sheer numbers, accepting massive casualties on both sides as the cost of victory. Instead, you sent one ship, one precisely calibrated response designed to minimize loss of life while achieving all objectives. That shows more sophistication than most species ever develop. Ambassador Chun inclined her head in acknowledgement. We learned through hard experience on our own world, she said quietly. Humanity has fought terrible wars, made devastating mistakes, and paid horrible prices for our aggression. We nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times before we achieved spaceflight. Everything we build now, every doctrine we develop, comes from those lessons. We know the cost of unchecked violence. The chamber fell silent as the assembled representatives considered this. Every species in the council had their own history of warfare, their own mistakes and lessons learned. The aftermath of the Kepler incident rippled across the galaxy like waves spreading from a stone dropped in still. Water news feeds on every civilized world carried footage of the battle, and military academies from 100 species began revising their tactical doctrines. But perhaps the most significant changes happened in the quiet conversations between diplomats, in strategic planning sessions, and in the careful recalibration of relationships between Earth and the rest of the galactic community. Ambassador Chun stood in her private office aboard the human embassy station. Looking out at the vista of stars beyond the viewport, her personal communication terminal chimed, indicating an incoming message. From Earth Command Admiral Marcus Webb's weathered face appeared on the screen. Ambassador, he greeted her with a slight smile. I've been reviewing the reports from Kepler, Captain. Sarah Chun performed admirably. The mission was a complete success. Ambassador Chen confirmed 0 civilian casualties, minimal friendly injuries, and a majority of pirates captured alive for trial. Exactly as planned. Webb nodded, but his expression grew more serious. The council session was 3 days ago. He noted, what's the temperature in the diplomatic circles? Mixed, Chun admitted. Some species are grateful, others are frightened. Most are simply trying to understand what humanity represents. Fear we can work with, Webb said. Fear means respect. And respect means they'll think twice before dismissing us. But we need to make sure that fear doesn't turn into hostility. Agreed. Chun replied, which is why I've been proposing joint training exercises with Council military forces. If we can show them that we're willing to share our tactical knowledge, to work as partners rather than competitors, they'll see us as allies instead of threats. Webb finished. Good thinking. I'll authorize the joint operations proposal. Start with the Vraxi. Captain Tlack seems to understand us better than most. After the call ended, Chun returned to the viewport and her contemplation of the stars. She knew that the decision to send only the Indomitable to Kepler had been calculated not just for tactical efficiency, but for diplomatic impact. Earth Command could have sent a fleet, could have made an overwhelming show of force instead. They'd sent one ship and proven that humanity's strength came not from numbers, but from precision, training, an unwavering commitment to their principles. A chime at her door interrupted her thoughts. Enter. She called. Captain Tlack stepped into the office, his forearms carrying various data tablets. The Vraxi officer had become something of a regular visitor over the past weeks. Eager to learn more about human military philosophy, Ambassador Chen, he greeted her with the gesture his species used to show respect. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me. Always a pleasure. Captain, Chen replied, gesturing to a seat designed to accommodate his unique physiology. What can I do for you today? Tlack settled into the chair and organized his tablets. I've been analyzing the Indomitable's performance from every angle I can think of, he said, and I keep coming back to one question. Why did you really send only one ship? Chun smiled. You've read the official reports, she said. One vessel was sufficient for the tactical requirements. Yes, Tlack said, waving one hand dismissively. But there's more to it than that. You're too sophisticated a species to make decisions based purely on tactical efficiency. There was a message being sent, and I want to understand it. Chun studied the Vraxi captain for a long moment, appreciating his insight. You're right. Of course, she admitted. The decision to send one ship was as much diplomatic as tactical. We wanted to demonstrate several things simultaneously. She began counting on her fingers. First, that we have the capability to respond to threats quickly and decisively. Second, that we don't need overwhelming numbers to achieve our objectives. Third, that we take civilian safety seriously enough to risk our own personnel. And fourth, perhaps most importantly, that we're not interested in conquest or showing off. We could have sent a fleet. She continued. We could have turned Kepler into a demonstration of Earth's military might. Instead, we sent exactly what was needed, nothing more. Nothing less. That's the message. We wanted the galaxy to receive, to lack sensory organs. Flickered with understanding. You're teaching the galaxy how to interpret human actions, he said slowly. When you respond to threats with precision rather than overwhelming force, it signals that you're confident, controlled, and principled. Exactly. Chun confirmed. Any species can throw resources at a problem until it goes away. True strength is knowing exactly how much force to use and when to hold back. The Vraxi captain was silent for a moment. Processing this, my people have a saying. He finally said, the sharpest blade is the one that never needs to be drawn. We have something similar, Chun replied. Peace through superior firepower, but the key is the peace. Not the firepower. The weapons exist to prevent their own use. Flack nodded, his understanding deepening. This is why you offered surrender terms throughout the battle. He observed, why you took prisoners instead of simply destroying every pirate vessel. You wanted to demonstrate that human military power serves human values, not the other way around. You're beginning to understand us quite well. Captain, Chun said with approval. She pulled up a holographic display showing the current positions of human vessels throughout Council space. We have ships stationed near several critical locations, she explained. Not as a threat, but as a promise. If another Kepler happens, if civilians need protection, we'll respond. One ship or many. Whatever is needed. Have you considered what happens if multiple crises occur simultaneously? Tlack asked, what if your vessels are spread too thin? Then we'll ask our allies for help, Chun said simply. We're not trying to be the galaxy's sole protector. We're trying to be reliable partners who can be counted on in a crisis. There's a difference. She closed the holographic display and looked directly at Tlack. We learned something important during our early space exploration, she said. We learned that humanity is incredibly diverse, different cultures, different philosophies, different approaches to solving problems. But we're strongest when we work together, when we combine our different perspectives and capabilities. We think the galaxy works the same way. Tlack's expression showed something. That might have been admiration. You're not conquerors, he said. You're builders. You want to build something better than what existed before. That's the hope, Chun. Agreed. But we can't do it alone. We need partners who understand us, who trust us, who are willing to work with us toward common goals. The Vraxi captain stood, gathering his tablets. You've given me much to think about, he said, and much to share with my superiors. I believe the Vraxi Collective would be honored to participate in your proposed joint training exercises. After Tlack departed, Chung returned to her viewport and her contemplation. She knew that not every species would be as quick to understand or trust humanity. There would be challenges ahead. Diplomatic crises, probably more military confrontations, but the foundation was being laid, a foundation built on demonstrated capability combined with demonstrated restraint. The Kepler incident had shown the galaxy what one human ship could do. Now the real work began, showing them what humanity could do as a partner, an ally, a force for stability and protection rather than conquest. Her terminal chimed again, this time with a priority message from Captain Sarah Chun aboard the Indomitable. The younger Chun, no relation, though they enjoyed the coincidence, appeared on the screen, her expression professional. Ambassador, we've completed prisoner transfers to council custody, she reported. All 11,862 pirates are now in appropriate detention facilities awaiting trial. Medical teams report that 97% of injured prisoners have been successfully treated. Excellent work, Captain, Ambassador Chen replied. Any complications during the transfers? Nothing significant, Captain Chen said, though several of the pirates requested to speak with me before they were transferred. They wanted to know why we didn't execute them. What did you tell them? I told them that humanity believes in justice, not revenge, the captain replied, that every being deserves a fair trial and the opportunity for rehabilitation. Some of them seemed genuinely confused by the concept. Ambassador Chen nodded. The Zering culture doesn't really have a tradition of mercy toward defeated enemies, she explained. You may have given them something to think about. I hope so, Captain Chen said. Oh, and Ambassador, one more thing. Krexter, the pirate lord, asked me to pass along a message. He said that if he survives his trial and sentence, he wants to meet with human cultural experts. He says he needs to understand the species that defeated him. Interesting. Ambassador Chen mused. I'll forward that request to the appropriate departments. Who knows, maybe we can turn an enemy into something else. After the call ended, Ambassador Chen pulled up the latest intelligence reports from across Council space. The Kepler incident had already inspired 3 other pirate groups to surrender to local authorities rather than risk facing human intervention. Merchant convoys were requesting humaneness, where different spec